After many years in political opposition, I mean, what some people call political wilderness, the political tradition that the new Patriotic Party belongs to returned to its winning ways, having won the last 2 elections. I mean, today you meet public officials of the party who are even confident about winning a third. What is it that takes a party from its winning ways to losing ways, and vice versa? My guest tonight is the General Secretary of the new Patriotic Party, Nana Ohene Ntow. Nana, thank you for coming.
Most welcome, David.
Nana, you know, for some strange reason, it's a bit awkward sitting. I spent many years with you. I want to get that out of the way quickly, working in the newsroom. I had no idea that you would turn out to be the General Secretary of the new Patriotic Party. What happened?
Well, that's quite an interesting subject you've raised, David. But I guess sometimes we ourselves don't realize the kinds of talents, the kinds of potentials are bottled up inside us until something happens. But I can tell you, David, that even whilst we were still in the newsroom, in GTV, I was very, very political. That is one. 2, I believe very, very strongly in this political tradition.
Why? What is it
of which I am General Secretary today?
What do you like about it? Is it this is belief recent, or you mean over the years?
Over the years, and in fact, since my childhood, since I was a child.
Since you were a child, you were a fan of MPP political tradition?
Maybe it all happened without me knowing, but it was my grandmother who must have planted it down my heart, not just my head, my heart.
Could you tell me quickly about that?
And she was very emotional about it. She had a certain kind of belief, political. I don't know where she got it from. She believed that Busia is a God-fearing man. He's a man of God, and that this is the person we ought to follow.
Busia being the beginning, if you like, of the MPP tradition?
That was when I was growing up, so
yes,
that is what I really remember.
Yeah.
And I remember this one. During those days, my oldest brother wanted to join the Young Pioneers.
That's the CPP.
With the CPP youth wing.
Yeah.
And my grandmother almost went berserk.
Why? Because he wanted to go to the other
She was just afraid, for some reason. She was afraid of the CPP tradition. And she had told us when we were young that Nkrumah had made spies out of children, that children should spy on their parents, and that if any of us went to Young Pioneer to become spies on her, she would get us out of the family house.
It sounded like they really hounded you into that.
She said, look, the first day you put the red scarf around your neck, you don't return to this house.
The Young Pioneers.
The Young Pioneer scarf.
So let's just get this straight. You're just saying basically your grandmother in your home was just an MPP home from the start.
And believe me, David, she also told us that because Nkrumah imprisoned her brother.
Yeah, it's personal things like that.
Very personal. Yeah. And who is this brother? Late Justice Koilabi happens to be my grandmother's first cousin.
And Nkrumah jailed?
And Nkrumah put Koilabi into Nsawam.
But let me interrupt you. Why? But all these personal things are the reason that you belong to the MPP tradition?
No, David, it even goes beyond that. As I grew up, I also told myself, I believe in the liberty of an individual, the capacity of an individual to think the way they want to think.
This is what the political platform of that tradition.
This is it. A philosophy, a political philosophy that believes in individual creativity, that believes in individual expression, that believes in the liberty of the individual and your capacity to create yourself, that believes in merit and excellence.
Is this part of the whole democratic tradition?
This is the basic philosophical tenets of the Dankwa Busia tradition, of which the MPP is the current offshoot.
You said that earlier to me, and I said to you, but some people argue that all those things don't put food on the table. And you got a fascinating answer. You were saying, no, it does put food on the table.
David, individual excellence, individual creativity, and the capacity to express yourself fully puts a lot of food on the table. Not just food, a lot of food. Imagine a mechanic being themselves, being able to create their mechanical capacity and potential, and fixing vehicles or machines to the best of their abilities. They will become the best mechanic in town. they will attract the most business, they will get the most financial reward. It puts a lot of food on the table. Imagine a lawyer.
Put, for just 1 second, after you put aside the conceptual thing, let me test it now.
Yes.
Is that the situation in practice?
David, today, you have individuals who have never imagined they could be entrepreneurs.
And you're saying that it's a particular socio-economic and political environment
that encourages
that.
That gives impetus to that kind of thing. And this is the tradition to which NPP belongs.
Tell me about your role as General Secretary. You are a powerful man. I mean, as General Secretary of a ruling party, am I correct?
Well,
you
being at the helm of a political party in itself is quite an influential thing.
Yes, but you're not in government.
Yeah,
your
but
party is
then,
in government.
The party is in government.
So are you still influential? Does it give you, that is the plus?
That is the plus. When your party is in power, that is the plus.
Then you don't, instead of leaving it alone to do its work, what you do is you are there all the time getting in its way.
David.
Is that not what party officials do?
Not quite, not quite. But what happens is that you have a party in government, and then that party sits back and decides that we are in government, we have tasted power, we want to continue staying in power.
Why? You must, democracy.
David, I believe that this political tradition has the best intentions for Ghana and has no business leaving power. Not because I don't believe in multi-party democracy, because I believe that if I check the agenda of the various political parties in Ghana today, if I check their sense of responsibility to the people of Ghana, if I check their readiness to do the right things to build a future for this country, NPP has no business leaving power.
But that's a contradiction.
NPP has no business losing power.
That's a contradiction. I mean, they shouldn't lose power, but you don't want a one-party state. If they don't lose power, they're there forever. Then it's a one-party state.
David, I can imagine that in theory, you might want to be there forever, but practically, I do not think that is possible. So what I might just say is that NPP ought to stay in power for as long as possible to deliver that agenda of securing for Ghana a stable, prosperous, peaceful society.
Where is the confidence from? I mean, our people are still, in many, many ways, still live in abject poverty. People's lives, in real essence, in many cases, have not changed. Where is your confidence from?
Let's take it from the basic things of life. We're talking about food, we're talking about shelter, we're talking about education today. David, if you check the statistics, some people don't want to listen or look at statistics.
Things are better, you will say.
Right now, because of one simple policy of this government, school feeding and subsidies and the capitation grant, basic school enrollment has gone through the roof. And now we even got a problem with finding enough classrooms and enough teachers. Parents who never wanted to talk about sending children to school are rushing to send their kids to school. And if a society begins to educate the future generation, that society is preparing itself for a more qualitative life.
People are rushing to their children to school now because the schools can provide them with a meal a day.
Precisely.
And we are proud of that. No, but for 1 second, I mean,
but
a
David,
meal a day.
It's a stage. It's a stage in development. No one can deny that Ghana is a developing country and that we are coming from a very difficult background in terms of our economy and in terms of social development. We are coming from a very difficult background, and therefore, if a government took a step such as this one, which encouraged parents to send children to school, that is a very critical step.
Let's talk about the party. Let's go back to the party. There are many front runners for them seeking the candidacy to become the candidate for the party. Is that again part of your democratic credentials on show? Is that
David, you already answered the question. Yes, indeed it is. But going beyond that,
does it not worry you? Does it not worry you?
No, David, I think it reinforces our belief that individuals ought to be able to express themselves fully. These are people who are very respectable people in our party, who have made a lot of contribution towards the development of the party, who believe that they have something to offer and therefore ought to be able to showcase themselves. But let me go to the legal side of it as far as our constitution is concerned. We have not yet opened nominations.
Celebrating 10 years of sound communication. Celebrating 10 years of competence. Celebrating 10 years of productive teamwork. Celebrating 10 years of innovation. Celebrating 10 years of dedicated service. Celebrating 10 years of leadership in mobile telecommunication. Ariba, the heart of your world.
Why do you think they chose you? How did you become the General Secretary?
David, I think what our people look for is who they consider to be working for them. If the party people...
How do they know that? When you go and tell them, that's how they know.
I've been in the media long before the party came to power. Well, of course, I was a professional person. I didn't go partisan like from day one in the media. But I think somewhere along the line, the streak shows, you know, and people sit back and listen to you and say, well, we think this person is speaking for us.
So you're a political animal?
In a sense, yes. But beyond that, since the party has been in power 2001 up until December last year, I was the government spokesman on finance. And I was in the media like sometimes 2-3 times a day.
They say that this government didn't do a pretty good job at that anyway, actually.
But at least at the level at which I was operating, the party people did recognize an individual they thought was speaking for them, was defending their government and defending their party. And I found this out when I went everywhere across the country.
They want somebody who stands for them.
They just told me, listen, we've heard your name. We know how much work you're doing for us. We think you can do the job for us. We'll vote for you. That was one. Two, the very fact that you visited our people in their own location, they tell you. One old man told me...
That's a big thing, isn't it?
One of the old guys told me in some village in the Upper East. He told me, he said, he started calling me General Secretary before the election. He said, General, for coming to my village, sitting with me under this tree,
I'll vote for you.
On this bench, I will vote for you.
Look,
That's simply just how he put it.
You see, but I want us to talk about that, you know, because it's quite in a way, it's quite an interesting and a funny notion. I mean, it's been around for a while, and that's why you hear people say if you want to win an election, you have to forget about the cities and go across the country. And I recall a watchman once saying to me, I asked him in the last election, who are you going to vote for? And he said he would vote for X. And I said, why? He said, he didn't come to me. That's the same thing you are saying.
They told me.
Yeah, but what is that?
It makes people feel important.
The thing is to make them go around, make them feel important.
Let them feel dignified. They told me, he said, look, we've heard some of the names. We haven't even seen them. Somebody said one of your contestants came.
The idea is that you've taken the time to come to them.
Yes. You have identified with them.
Even if only once?
It doesn't matter.
Wow.
And then also, you give them a message. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm going to continue defending our party. I'm going to continue speaking for our party. I'm going to continue projecting the good works of the party in government because I believed very strongly that the government had delivered on several fronts.
So you went for a competitive thing and you just won that.
And I won.
And so you are like a chief administrator or executive of the party.
You're actually the chief executive of the party.
Of the new Patriotic Party.
He's the chief executive of the party. He's the chief operating officer.
So are you in touch with the president? Are you in touch with people in government, in your party?
Absolutely. You are the very helm of the party, and the government recognizes that it is in government because of the party, and the president avails himself of every opportunity to speak, to dialogue, to confer with the party leadership.
With Ariba's free network calls from 12:30 to 5 a.m., you can now catch up on what you missed out during the day. Ariba, celebrating 10 years of leadership in mobile telecommunication.
What kind of man is the president? Does he, when you meet, does he listen a lot? What is he like?
He's an easygoing person. Kufuor is a down-to-earth person. He's a very deliberated, calculative person. Kufuor doesn't just take decisions. When finally he takes decisions, I have found those decisions to be very sound. And I find his judgment to be very sound.
He's going to be going now.
That's a major challenge to the party. And that is why probably it's even positive that way before we go for our Congress, a couple of names and faces are popping up showing interest. At least it gives the party a sense of what is available. And comparing it to what we had in Kufuor, how do we do the linkage?
But what's going to happen anyway? I mean, the various candidates are going to go around and are going to ensure that they nurture as many constituents as possible, isn't it? Really, that's all that's going to happen.
It is in the interest of the party that party people and people who are interested in taking up positions keep the party active, keep the party alive. If you have people, provided that they do not do or say anything that undermines the unity and integrity of the party itself, I think it is very positive for people to show interest in political leadership, for people to engage, for people to engage our people across the country in the constituencies and in the polling stations.
And put their case across the board.
It is good.
So again, you believe that the person that will come out victorious, if you like, as the candidate,
yes,
will be the result of a democratic exercise like that.
We do have a process. We would open nominations, we will go through vetting, and then we will have a Congress.
Military coups are really a thing of the past now, are they not? Or would you say we should not be so dismissive of them?
David, I think we are firmly on the path of consolidating democracy in
Meaning
Ghana.
changing our governments in a civil manner.
To the extent that I would say I'm quite confident about the mood within the military system, the mood in the police system, the mood in the...
That now they see themselves in...
That even in the military people would tell you that on the whole, the military establishment does better when there is a civilian government. And that indeed, the times when the military institutions have suffered most have been times when military governments were in place.
Why is that?
That's a very strange paradox. But that is what has been the case. You find a lot of the internal bickering.
Because the heads of state get involved.
Yeah, exactly, and they are all military people themselves.
No, but I mean they get involved because they feel that's terrain where they are comfortable.
It's their own. Exactly. So increasingly, the people in the regimented institutions are realizing that it is to their own interests. It is in their own interest, and it is to their own advantage if you have a democratic environment in which the military is treated as a professional institution and taken care of by the political class.
But if the system got oppressive and hard, would there be justification then?
I think it will all depend on the extent of the maturity of society in general.
To society, even when it's hard, it must just wait to change government.
Everybody is coming to terms with the fact that it is best to change our system democratically without falling back into the dark days of military absurdities and takeovers.
Yeah. The New Patriotic Party is increasingly, showing a certain a need. I've heard it over the years to be more in touch with the people. It was always seen as a bit aloof. The NDC and the CBA, those traditions are for the masses, so to speak. Is that a big lesson you learned, and are you glad that you are evolving more towards the masses, or were you always with the masses?
David, that was a very important thing. In politics, perception is reality. The perception had been that NPP was an elitist party. But you see, for the very fact that the party has won 2 national elections, general elections, would immediately knock that perception down.
What happened?
Because, but let me come to that, David. For a party to have been able to win 2 elections it immediately knocks it off. If
I
the party is
agree, but I'm
elitist and
interested
out
in-
of touch with the people,
yeah, but
the people won't vote for you. That
how
is
does
one.
that
But
happen?
two, and more importantly, the party has the kind of grassroots structures that possibly no other party has.
So
Down
so maybe
to the-
they were just not living it because the perception must have come from somewhere.
Exactly. Actually, it was part of the strategic thrust that brought the party to power. It was a new strategic orientation that the party adopted, particularly for the 2000 election.
To do what? To go out
To
there a bit
structure
more.
its system down to the grassroots, where you have polling station elections.
But is that not
And
always
you
the
have-
case? It
It hasn't been. It wasn't the
generic
case.
party structures?
It wasn't the case.
Wasn't
in
the case
past.
for that party or for parties?
What you used to have was what we call the zone, which was quite big, and then the constituency.
You're saying we've zeroed in even more.
You've zeroed in into a small cell, which is just
So
a
is that
couple
the
of
smallest
households.
A of the party, the cell?
Yeah.
And the cell is what, a
polling
few
station.
houses?
Yeah, a few households.
And that's the
you
polling
got
station.
elected executives
that
manning that
level.
polling station, doing the campaigning,
Let's
doing
come up,
the
let's come up.
canvassing.
And from
then
cell
you
to
move
what?
on to the constituency,
That's the constituency.
which is a seat in parliament
And
now.
how many are those in Ghana now?
230.
That's when you have a seat in parliament.
That
So
is
from
it.
the cell,
230,
the
you move
constituency.
on to the constituency. But even before you get to the constituency, we have
Between
what we
the cell
call
and constituency,
the
there's
local branch, which
the
is
ward.
the town.
What about the ward and all
Exactly. So these are all structures that we have put in place, which puts us directly in touch with the deepest of our society, down.
You know, it's funny, because I tell you something. A couple of years ago, it was very easy to hear people say, and I used to hear that a lot, that there is no way. This is especially when the NDC regime was opening up, and it was like, NPP has never won an election in Ghana. I mean, even when they won an election, their founder Buzia's time, it was really handed over to them by the military, by FIFA and so on. And the NDP now has won 2 elections. What happened? That's all I'm saying.
David, I think it all goes to reinforce this discussion we've just been having about a new strategic orientation that the party has adopted in getting in touch with the people and presenting its message to the people and getting a mass following.
Do they have competition?
This is a mass party.
Do
Of
you
course,
consider
of course,
your
we do
party,
have-
who is
we do
your
have-
real
of
competition,
course,
NPP?
in Ghana, I think it is obvious that
It's
it's
the
the
NDC.
NDC,
It's the NDC.
which is the largest opposition party.
They can whip you at the next
They
election.
are the
no?
ones that we are watching very closely.
They can unseat you.
And you never can tell. Elections are elections.
People just
but we're
get
saying-
tired. If you've been there for a long time, they want change sometimes.
But we are pointing people to the progressive changes, positive.
So we will not. We can have a situation where one government is there for 4 terms. I mean, 4 consecutive terms.
It is very
And
possible
all that is all right.
if you maintain the confidence of the people.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the biggest challenges the NPP as a party and government is facing is to be able to articulate its successes to the people strongly enough.
What about
because
losers?
I go around the
What about
country-
our losers? Are our losers, as part of the whole tradition that we're developing, are our losers good losers?
Well,
that can
sometimes
threaten
sometimes you have good losers, sometimes you have bad losers, and I don't know which one you're referring to. There are losers within parties, and there are losers at the national
at the election.
at the national election level.
yeah.
I think so far,
So-
so good. The NDC conceded defeats in both 2000 and 2004, and that was a good thing. That was a very democratic thing that contributed a lot in ensuring that the aftermath of the election was peaceful, because you have situations where losers turn out to be such bad losers.
Absolutely, that
Eventually,
things
there's
get
total chaos.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing, and I congratulate the NDC for that. But I can also assure you that, David, with the kind of policies and programs we have in place, if the NPP, and this is one of my key strategic thrusts, is able to communicate its message strongly and clearly, there is no way the people will choose any other party come 2008.
Thank you.